And Washington Post taking some heat from one of its own employees over this headline. With record COVID cases, China scrambles to plug an immunity gap. Coronavirus outbreak on the verge of being China's biggest of the pandemic has exposed a critical flaw in Beijing's zero COVID strategy, a vast population without natural immunity. But not to be outdone, controversial reporter Taylor Lorenz responding with this quote: "There is no lasting natural immunity to COVID. You can get COVID over and over and over again because there are so many endlessly evolving strains and antibodies wane. Also, choosing not to kill off millions of vulnerable people, as the U.S. is doing, isn't a critical flaw."
Fox News contributor Joe Concha joins us now. Joe, is her perspective pro-authoritarian lockdown and anti-vaccine? Is that what she's trying to say here?
It appears that's the case. And instead of Taylor Lorenz just going to her editors privately and saying, hey, I have a problem with this piece, she's got to put on a public show to try to embarrass her employer. I mean, it's utterly astonishing that this activist who plays a reporter on TV and in print is still employed by the newspaper. I mean, think about what she's advocating here for a second, what she supports. A communist government that locked people in apartment buildings in one city in an effort to contain COVID. And when a fire broke out, 10 people died because firefighters couldn't get to them because the doors were welded shut. There's one Chinese city that's called that has an isolation camp with 90,000 isolation pods, 90,000. And Taylor Lorenz, this reporter, supports all of this. She wants the U.S. to impose similar lockdowns here, apparently. I mean, remember, this is the same reporter who claims she got PTSD from mean tweets. Thankfully, the Chinese people have had enough. They're taking to the streets. They're risking their own lives in protesting these government lockdowns. And I think what we learned here in the U.S. is that COVID can't be contained and lockdowns are not the answer. But the Washington Post has its most prominent face, at least on social media, saying she supports these measures in China. I mean, Jeff Bezos must be so proud at this point, Todd.
She's not alone, though, Joe. It's not like Taylor Lorenz is the only person who has these views. There are so many on the left who seem like they want to live in their parents' basements forever. They never want to go outside. They want to live in a perpetual state of COVID lockdowns in the off chance that they get this thing. Will people on the far left, Taylor Lorenz included, ever be happy unless we are all locked in our homes forever?
Apparently not. Thankfully, a good majority of Americans say, no, we understand that COVID is here. We have to learn to deal with it in terms of therapeutics. If we do get it, how to handle getting it. But to stay indoors, I mean, the way you get COVID, at least in my household, because it's happened 3 times, is when one person, all it takes is one person, brings it home, and then everybody gets it while they're in their homes, right? So you got to get out. You got to be free. And most importantly, that's the best thing for businesses and for mental health, for that matter. But then we heard Dr. Fauci just over the weekend, Todd, talking about how he's not quite sure after the holidays whether schools should be locked down again or not if there's a rise in COVID cases. Enough. The data and science says that's not the way you go about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to what's really going on in China, Joe, it's unbelievable. You have people in cities across the country fighting back against an authoritarian regime. President Biden, so far, I don't believe, has said anything about this. Do you expect him to? And how important would his messaging be here?
Well, he was in Nantucket over the weekend. You know, of course, he couldn't be bothered to talk about this, what's going on in China, again, where people are dying as a result of being isolated during these lockdowns. But yeah, the President of the United States should be standing up like the 45th president would have by now to say that this is wrong. And also, by the way, ask for answers as to where COVID began. Was it in that lab in Wuhan that studies coronaviruses? Seems pretty logical. But when the president had a chance, President Biden, that is, he did not challenge Xi Jinping in terms of anything regarding COVID. And you have to ask, why is that? Why is this president so soft on this particular country where his son made so much money, possibly illegally, through influence peddling? I guess we're going to find out January 3rd when the new Congress takes office and hearings begin on that front, Carly.
January will definitely be a very new year.
Yes.
Joe, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.